And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to make a southern minestrone soup. Now we've done minestrone soup the Italian way with the broken spaghetti pieces or pasta, whatever you have on hand, but today we're going to make it southern style with some greens in it. It's delicious. To go alongside that, we're going to make a garlic cheddar chive drop biscuit, and then for dessert we're going to make a chocolate sauce, a Mexican chocolate sauce that we're going to serve over ice cream. And you could also serve it over pound cake or angel food cake, but we're going to do it today over ice cream. So let's get started. Now our soup needs to simmer. This is a very quick cooking soup, but it still needs to simmer just a few minutes. So this is an 8-quart soup pot that I've got here on my stove top. We're going to saute some vegetables first. So I'm going to preheat that and add just a couple of tablespoons or so of canola oil or vegetable oil, whatever you have. You don't need to use your olive oil here, although you could if you wanted to. We're going to preheat that because we're going to saute some vegetables. We're going to start with carrot. You know, most soup recipes start with what they call the Trinity, and that is carrot, celery, and onion, and this one is not going to be any different. And my knife needs to be sharpened. I can tell by the way it's working, so we'll have to do that. But I'm just going to cut it. I'm going to cut it in smaller, little more manageable pieces. We're going to cut a carrot, and we're going to make a dice here, about a medium dice, because you want it to fit on the spoon. You want to think about your final product and how you're going to eat it, and this is a soup. So it definitely needs to be cut into a size that fits on a spoon, and I need to get another knife. I do not like dull knives. Mike is my knife sharpener. Look at the difference, how easy that goes through those carrots. A dull knife is more dangerous in your kitchen than a sharp one. So I've got 2 carrots, and to go with that, we're going to cut up a couple or 3 celery stalks. These were very, very thin celery stalks, so I'm going to use 3. But if your celery's kind of fat, you know what I mean, then you probably would just want 2, because we've got a lot of different flavors going on in this soup. And then the same thing, think about the same size pieces as what your carrots are cut into, bite sizes. I am a soup lover. I eat soup year round. It doesn't matter how hot or how cold, I want soup. So I'm going to go ahead and get these started. And this is something I most definitely would make in the middle of summer when I had lots of fresh vegetables out of the garden. Absolutely would be delicious. You could use different kinds of vegetables, but pretty much all soup recipes, again, will start with this combination of celery, carrots, and onion. Now I've got 1 medium white onion, but you can use a yellow onion or you could use a red onion if you wanted to, but you want that onion flavor in there. It brings a lot of sweetness and goodness to the soup pot. So we're going to do 1. This is a medium-sized onion that seems to be falling apart on me here. Just cut it into about the same size pieces again as your carrot and celery. And we're going to saute these first. Then we're going to add some other delicious flavors to the soup. Soup is one of those meals that most of the time is even better the next day. So even if you are just maybe a household of 1 or 2 people, make the whole recipe. And we're going to add some tortellini. Leave out the tortellini. Take half of it out when it's done. Put half of the batch of tortellini in there. Finish simmering that. And then stick it in the freezer. And then when you want to cook it and reheat it, then is when you would want to add your tortellini. I wouldn't add the full amount of the tortellini until I was ready to serve. So if you're a smaller household, still make the whole recipe and then just freeze it. And soup freezes beautifully. And I do this all the time at home, because I'm a huge soup eater. And so I will make, and maybe I will want it again, and maybe my family won't, and I will freeze it. Sometimes I'll do it in little individual containers and stick it in the freezer, and then when I want a cup of soup, I can bring it out and heat it gently on the stove or put it in a glass bowl and microwave it to warm it through. So definitely think about that. It's also a very, very economical thing to cook in your house because soup, generally speaking, uses less expensive ingredients, so it's a cost-cutting thing too. Now we're going to need at the end of this, or to add into it, some fresh parsley. I like the flat leaf. You've seen me use this on the program many times, and this doesn't want to come off there. Come on, you. About 1/4 cup. You want quite a bit of parsley in here because really, I'm not using fresh greens. I'm going to use some frozen, and this will be your fresh flavor. The stems aren't too much on this, so I'm going to leave the stems. If you've got real thick stems, you would want to make sure you get most of the stem out of there. I think I'll throw those away. And just chop it up and put it to the side. We don't want to add it right yet, but while we're waiting on that to simmer, we'll go ahead and chop up our parsley. Remember, this is how we chop parsley. You put one end of your knife on the board, and then just with your other hand, move it back and forth. My boys have gotten quite good at this. They can chop things and do it just a beautiful job. And I know if they can do it, you can too. You see how I'm doing that? And then scrape it all together and start a different direction. And it minces it up. And you do that with anything that you got to mince. Let's see. You don't want to cook these through. We're just kind of getting them started and getting them softened just a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper at this stage. About a teaspoon of salt. I don't really cook with a whole lot of salt, so if you like a little more salt, feel free to add it. About 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Kind of stir that in. To bring out the flavors of our spices, I'm going to go ahead and add them. This is about 1/2 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. If you don't like heat, you could leave that out or reduce the amount. And then this is some rosemary. This is about 1 tablespoon of dried rosemary. If you have fresh, you would want about 2 tablespoons or even maybe 3. Remember, with your dried herbs, it's 3 to 1. You want 3 times the amount of fresh as you would have dried, because anytime you dry it, it really concentrates that flavor. And about 1 clove of minced garlic. And you know, this brings up a point. You just want to saute that garlic until you start smelling it. You see how on the program when you watch, I have everything in its little bowl already ready to go. There's a fancy French term for that. It's called mise en place, but what that means is everything in its place. Cooking is so much more pleasurable if you will take the time in the beginning to get everything out ready to go, so that when you're cooking, number one, you know you have all your ingredients, and number two, you're not leaving a pot to go here and get this and go here and get that. If you have everything ready to go, cooking is so much easier. And that's something that you'll see, you know, a lot in every professional kitchen out there, but on all the cooking shows you see that. Well, that's for time savings there, but also it does make it easier. And try to do that in your kitchen at home, because it really will make a difference in how you cook and the ease of cooking. This is just 2 cans, 14-ounce cans of just diced tomatoes, just plain old diced tomatoes. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that down. And then this is 2 28-ounce boxes. I like the boxed stocks better, of just chicken broth, just low sodium chicken broth. And I'm using 2 boxes. And I'm going to add that to it. And if you need it to be a little thinner when it cooks up, you can always add more water or more chicken stock. Stir that up. Turn it down to like low, medium to low. And I'm going to add my parsley in to let it simmer. And today, I chose spinach. But I have made this many times. My favorite green of all is collard greens. I love them. And if you've got some collard greens, either fresh or frozen, either one, by all means, add the chopped collard greens or turnip greens or kale or mustard, any kind of green that you like. That's kind of what makes this southern. But today I'm just using spinach. Greens are extremely healthy for you. and they are delicious, and it's a staple in my diet. I eat greens all the time, and it really is very, very healthy and very, very good for you. And that's it for the soup. We're just going to kind of let this come up to a simmer, turn it down, and let it go for about 20 minutes, and then we will add in our tortellini, or you could use broken pasta, but we're going to use tortellini today. So I'm just going to let this simmer. I'm going to take a quick break, get cleaned up, and when I come back, we're going to start on some wonderful drop biscuits to go alongside our soup. I'll be back with you in just a few minutes. And welcome back. Now our soup is simmering away. Oh, looks so good. I love soup. Let's get that kind of going, turn it up just a little bit. Now my oven is preheated to 425 degrees, and we're going to make a quick drop biscuit. Now it occurred to me that maybe not everyone has a pastry cutter that you use to cut butter into your flour. So we're going to use our food processor, and I'm going to show you some different techniques on different programs. In here I've got 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and this is half a cup or 1 stick of, I use unsalted butter. You can use salted if you want. If you do use salted butter, you will want to cut back on the amount of salt. I always use unsalted butter, by the way. I never use regular salted butter in my recipes, never. I have 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, a tablespoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of salt. And what I'm going to do is use my food processor to incorporate my butter into the flour mixture. It takes about 8 or so pulses, quick pulse. By pulse, I mean just like that. I don't mean let it run, just to pulse it until it looks kind of like coarse sand is what you're going for here. I've got my hand over my hole because it's coming out. And that's about right. You want little chunks of butter in your biscuit dough because that's what makes them fluffy and delicious. And then I'm just going to put this in a bowl. Be careful with the blade. If you don't have a food processor, and you don't have a biscuit cutter or a pastry cutter, you can use 2 knives and just kind of crisscross. And I have discovered, and I'm going to do this on another program, that a great big box grater or a microplane with the big holes makes a perfect tool to incorporate butter into your dough. I've got some chives because this is, after all, a cheddar chive biscuit, and my chives are going everywhere on my cutting board, but that's okay. I like the flavor of chives in this because it's a mild, very, very mild oniony flavor, and it adds such goodness to the biscuit dough. And this is about 1/4 of a cup or so of just chives. And your food processor also incorporated your flour with your salt and your baking powder and all that. If you don't do that, then let me show you what I would do. I'd use my whisk, and I would just stir that together to incorporate that all through. But it did happen in the food processor. Now, to this, we're going to add a cup of shredded sharp cheddar cheese. And then my new favorite ingredient for about anything is Greek yogurt. I love it to cook with or to bake with. It is so good and so healthy for you. It really, really, really adds moisture and protein to your cooked goods. Now, this is Greek yogurt, plain Greek yogurt. Make sure that you look at the ingredients and make sure that it says plain and not vanilla, because you would not want vanilla yogurt in your biscuit dough. And I'm going to stir this together just using a spoon. Now, this is where you're really going to have to use your judgment. On a day when there's a lot of moisture in the air, or not a lot of moisture in the air, you will need more or less liquid. And in this case, I'm using the yogurt as my liquid. It really truly depends. So sometimes you might need to add a little bit more. You could add milk or half and half or more yogurt if you wanted to get your dough to come together. That's just true for any time you're making a dough of any kind, really. And this looks actually like it's going to be perfectly fine without adding anything else. You really want to get that worked in there to get that yogurt mixed in and all of your flour incorporated into your dough. And we're going to drop these onto a lined baking sheet, and we're going to bake them for about 10 minutes. If you don't have now this is not regular aluminum foil. You've seen me use this on the program so many times. I adore this non-stick aluminum foil that you can get now at the stores. I use it instead of parchment paper, but if you have parchment paper, by all means you could use parchment paper. Don't use waxed paper in your oven, but the non-stick foil or parchment paper, either one, will work beautifully. And it really depends on how big you want your biscuits. I don't want them really, really big. I want them, you know, I'm just got 2 spoons here, and I'm just using them, and I'm dropping it. And I'd say that's about the size of a golf ball, if I was guessing. And just kind of take 1 spoon. Let me show you. I get a spoon, and then I just sort of smooth it with the other one just a little bit. These are meant to look rustic. And you want to spread them about 2 inches or so apart on your baking sheet. And then we're going to put them in the oven, and we're going to let them bake. They take about 10 minutes or so. They're delicious, and with anything, but they are so good alongside this soup. But if you were making chili or anything like that, and really you could bake these, make them a little bit bigger for breakfast, and put a slice of country ham in there, would be delicious. Or make them smaller, little tea biscuits, you know, if you were having an afternoon tea, which I find I am learning to dearly love, is afternoon tea with just a little tiny bite of something to eat. This would be perfect with that. Instead of your traditional scones, you could make this. You could make a chicken salad and serve inside these, or a ham salad or an egg salad. You get my point. You can do anything with a biscuit. You can make so many different things. They're full of butter and cheese and so, so very good. Just lining our sheet pan here. See if I can make room. I'm going to need to get 2. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm just going to get these in the oven. They're going to bake for 10 minutes. And when I come back, we're going to finish up the soup and make some chocolate sauce to go over some ice cream. I'll be back in just a minute. Now our biscuits are in the oven, and it's time to add our tortellini to our soup. Now these are little tiny cheese-filled tortellinis. You could use any kind of tortellini that you wanted. You could even use small ravioli if you wanted to. This is the kind that you buy in the dairy, you know, over there where the cheeses and the sour creams and all that is. But you could use frozen, or you could even use, sometimes in the pasta section where you find the dried pasta, they have dried tortellini. But I like these that you buy in the dairy section. And this is just 1 package of just cheese tortellini, but you could use any flavor you like. And I'm going to add that to the soup. And that needs about 10 minutes to cook through. And then the soup is done. So I'm going to just kind of let that go, simmer away. And now it's time to make the chocolate sauce for the ice cream, and this is delicious. Now in this pot, I have about that much water. You do not want the water to touch the bottom of your bowl. If you have a double boiler, this is the time to use it. You could even do this in the microwave if you wanted to. You could put the ingredients in a microwavable bowl and do it like in 30-second increments, but for the purposes of the show, I want to show you on the stove top. Place that pot of about 2 or 3 ounces of chocolate on the pot of simmering water. Let me get my little whisk here, if I can get it out of the bowl. And we're going to just stir that together. We're going to let that melt. To this, we're making a Mexican chocolate sauce. Now you might ask, what's a Mexican chocolate sauce? It has a little bit of spice to it. It has a little bit of cinnamon in it. This is very, very strong coffee. I've got more than I need here, but I'm going to have to kind of measure it. I would start with about half a cup as your liquid in your chocolate, because you don't want it to be too thin. And the heat coming up from the simmering water will cause that chocolate to melt. It takes just a minute. Coffee, I don't know the science behind it, but coffee brings out the chocolateness of coffee. Anytime you're making chocolate, anything, if you'll add just a little bit of espresso powder or instant coffee or a strong brewed coffee like this, it really makes the chocolate taste phenomenal. I do not know why it makes it taste chocolatier. It doesn't taste like coffee at all. It just makes the coffee taste better. Now, we're going to let that heat up for just a minute. I have 1/4 cup of, I'm using dark brown sugar because that's what I had in my pantry, but if you have light brown, that's normally what I use. About a teaspoon of cinnamon, just regular old ground cinnamon, and about a teaspoon of good vanilla. And that's all there is to this. And we're just going to stir it until that chocolate melts, and then we're going to serve it over ice cream. You could also serve this over a slice of pound cake or angel food cake or anything like that. It's delicious. And you smell, instantly you get that cinnamon, and oh, it smells so, so good. So we're just going to kind of keep whisking this until that chocolate melts, and then we're going to serve it over some ice cream. Now, when your chocolate is melted, add 1 stick of butter and let that butter slowly melt into the chocolate, and that gives it a gloss and a richness. Most chocolate sauces that you will eat have a cream base, like a heavy cream or whipping cream. But I find sometimes that mutes the flavor of the chocolate, so I use butter instead, and I just let that melt into, and I know it sounds like a lot, but you're not going to eat this whole bowl. You're going to just serve this over some delicious ice cream. So I like vanilla. You could by all means use any kind of ice cream that you like, but I think the traditional flavor with this would be vanilla, or maybe coffee ice cream. I really like coffee ice cream. If you've never tried that, you would love it. Now, our soup is done. Look how much the little tortellinis just puffed up there. And here is our delicious, just a bowl of ice cream. So let me show you how I would serve this. You could grate some cinnamon over top too if you wanted. Would be delicious. Be sure that your bowl, 2 things with this. Make sure your bowl does not touch that water, because if it does, then the chocolate will seize and it will not be good. It will taste burned. So make sure, if you're going to do it this way, that the bowl doesn't touch the bottom, the water doesn't touch the bowl. And you can leave this over very, very low and let it stay warm, or you could put this actually in a fondue pot and dip, chocolate or dip some strawberries into it or marshmallows. If you want to have a fondue party, this would be delicious in that. So I'm just going to take it and drizzle it over top of some ice cream. And you need nothing further in this world than that right there. And I can't wait to dig into that. That is delicious. All right, now here are our beautiful Chive Cheddar drop biscuits. Don't they look delicious? absolutely scrumptious to go alongside our Southern minestrone soup. What makes it Southern are the greens. Oh, so good. Just love this soup. And I would make the full recipe if you're just a smaller household. Freeze half of it without the tortellini, and then when you're ready to reheat it, add your tortellini at that time. And then our wonderful ice cream with our chocolate sauce. These are very easy, very, very doable recipes for you any night of the week. They're easy to do and they taste delicious and they're healthy for your family. Thank you for joining with me. Let me know what you think about the recipes, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna,